to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Ross Arnold, the Director of Athletics at Ogden High School. Welcome to the podcast, Ross.
Thanks, Hutch. Appreciate you having me.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience across the world where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
All right. Well, I grew up in a small town in Indiana, outside Fort Wayne, Indiana, called South Whitley. I doubt if any of you have ever been in that little town before, but that's also just a few hours outside Chicago. And so that's where I grew up, went to high school there, graduated from Whitco High School, went on to BYU, and earned my teaching certificate from BYU, and found a wife there too, of course. So BYU did its job, and ended up getting my master's degree from Grand Canyon University after I started teaching. In that time, I served an LDS mission in Rome, Italy for 2 years. And then after my mission, and when I came back to BYU, that's where I met my wife. And 6 months after we met, we were married, and we've been married 32 years now. Have 4
That's
children
awesome.
and 2 grandchildren. Yeah.
That is awesome. So after you graduated from BYU, then where was your first job in education?
So I student taught at Fremont High School. And
Okay.
yeah, and it was the 3rd year the school was open. I student taught there. And at the end of the year, there was 2 history jobs open and available, and I was fortunate enough to get one of them. And so I was at Fremont High School for 25 years before coming over to Ogden High School to be the athletic director.
And so talk about what was it then made you decide to leave Fremont in a different district to go work at Ogden High?
well, they decided it was time. It was time to move on. So I coached football and baseball at Fremont for a lot of years. Baseball, I coached a total of 15 years. 9 of them as the head coach, and I coached all 25 years football. So I was the defensive coordinator for 19 years and the head coach for 5. And so, they decided it was time for someone else to lead the program. And so this opportunity arose over here at Ogden High, and I was fortunate enough to land it.
So you would have been at Fremont back in my days when I can remember playing Fremont in football more than once, I think when I was at Jordan. So maybe the earlier 2000s. So I was the AD there. So you would have been on that staff then.
That's correct. Yeah, we had some battles.
Yeah.
Some
Okay.
really good ones. We had a mud game
Yeah.
or something, I think, at our place in
Yeah.
the playoffs.
Yeah.
A low
I
scoring mud
remember it
game.
well. I remember it well. So talk about growing up in Indiana, where if it's a small, so Fort Wayne is that up towards Gary? Is my geography correct, or is it not quite that
It's not
far?
too shabby. Yeah, if you go east of Gary, go due east of Gary, and you'll hit Fort Wayne. So
Okay, and
Gary's
so
like
as
in the
a northwest corner there.
correct, and Fort Wayne's in the northeast corner.
Okay, and so talk about uh, playing youth sports in a smaller town. Did you have as much opportunity as some of the other kids? Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, that was interesting. I played basketball and baseball growing up. Baseball was Little League Baseball. Um, we played a league in our town, and then we created an all-star team and traveled a little bit. And my dad was always the coach, growing up. Same with basketball. So in our little town, there was only a couple teams, so we had to travel quite a bit to go play other towns and other schools. Football, we didn't have organized football. And so I didn't play football until I was a ninth grader in high school.
Okay. All right. And then you just said, so you graduated Whitco High School, went to BYU, and then if you tell you when you originally went back to BYU, that's where you met your wife. And then was your wife from like Utah, Idaho, or you decided you didn't want to go back to Indiana? How did that work?
Yeah, my wife's from Manaway, Utah.
Okay, I
So
know
if
exactly
you,
where that is.
yeah, you got a speeding ticket from there?
No, but I've my one of my grandsons plays at Utah State, so we made the trip for all the home games this year. And of course, you Brigham City and Manaway's right there, and then once you get out of Manaway, then it's Sardine Canyon, then you're into Cache Valley. So that's
That's correct. Yeah.
talk about some of the leaders and mentors you had in your life that have made a difference to you, Ross.
Well, I think all of us get into coaching and probably athletic directorship because of somebody that we grew up with that influenced us. And it's the same with me. My high school football coach, Coach Brian Sprunger, was, a huge influence on me. Um, of course, besides my father, I would say Coach Sprunger probably had the greatest influence on me growing up. And he always came into my dad's business and was a friend of the family and took good care of us and pushed us to excel in the classroom and on the field. And um, it's just something when I graduated from high school, I knew that's what I wanted to do. Is I wanted to teach and I wanted to coach. I didn't know I was going to coach football. That was probably probably the out of the three sports I played, that probably wasn't my best one. I thought I was going to be a basketball coach, but I ended up falling into the football and basically doing exactly what he did, coaching football and doing driver's ed.
There you go.
So yeah, so he was probably my biggest one growing up, and then in my professional life, Fred Thompson got me my start in education when I was student teaching at Fremont High. It was in the spring, winter and spring, and I went down and found Fred and volunteered my time to coach baseball. And if you know Fred, he's a tall figure, and he just stared at me for the longest time, and then he said, "I've never had a student teacher that's been worth a damn." And I said, "Well, I promise I'll work hard and be there every day, and you don't have to pay me." And so I persuaded him then. So I coached baseball while I was student teaching. And at the end of the year, he went to the other coaches and the principal and convinced them that I needed to be hired there. Um, so I coached football, basketball, and baseball my first 3 years. My first 3 years, and then I dropped basketball. But Blaine Monkers was the head football coach at that
Hmm.
time, and Blaine hired me, and I got started with the sophomores. It was me and Eric Thompson and
Hmm.
Jason Duckworth. Um,
Wow, that's some names
Long
from
time
the
ago,
past. Well,
right?
that's it's
Yeah.
amazing. You mentioned Fred, and I don't know Fred well, but I didn't meet Fred through education years and years ago in the 80s and the 90s. I umpired in Salt Lake County, and Fred was I met Fred through I think the team he was with, a fast pitch team, Swift Shaw Construction, and that's before I even knew he was in education. Then, of course, I've known Blaine for years and years, know his wife Kim,
Yeah,
and Jason Duckworth. I mean, they're all voices from the past. So there you have it. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let me ask
It
you
was a lot of
for a
fun.
minute. Yeah, I can imagine it was. Let me ask you for a minute about your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
Well, this is an interesting one, and I'm gonna be a little vulnerable here, but probably my biggest failure was when I was fired at Fremont High School as the head football coach. You know, it's always an embarrassing thing when because it's out in the
Sure.
public. They let everybody know, and no explanation given, you know, by admin. And so, a couple things I learned from it was um, that I vowed I would never fire somebody like that. You know, when I got this job, that I would make sure that our coaches, we met often, we had evaluations, and coaches knew exactly where they stood. And so I hope I've done that the last 4 years of my job. But more importantly, you know, I really did deserve to get fired. I didn't do a good job my last year, and I lost myself while coaching in that last year. I focused so much on X's and O's and winning that I forgot to focus on the root, and I was focused only
Mm.
on the fruit. And you know, I didn't build good relationships during the season. I lost those good relationships. I didn't treat people right. I ignored the little things, and so you know, it was quite a learning experience for me. And so when I came over here to be the athletic director, I've tried to make it a point to build relationships every single day and to focus on the root. And by doing that, the fruit will take care of itself.
That is some great insight. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let me ask you, Ross, the job of AD, and I think you said maybe 4 or 5 years now you've been the AD. How has the job of athletic administration changed since you first got into it?
Yeah, this is my fourth year, and thankfully we have computers um, to do. I listen to all those podcasts, and I hear some of these guys that have been doing it for a while talk about um, not having to register my athlete and having to keep track of everything on paper and file it and
Well,
all
yeah,
that other
I
stuff.
don't mean to interrupt you, but that's I when I left Jordan, so this would have been June of 2013, and I believe Register My Athlete made its debut July 1st, 2013. So, right, because I can remember exactly which stacks and stacks of eligibility packets and going through each one of them, but didn't mean to interrupt, so continue on.
No, no, I couldn't imagine what that was like. But today, like for me, the things that have changed the most the last 4 years is technology and different rather than computer. You know, it's like AI and Canva and social media and the school websites. And first of all, I've got to learn how to do all that stuff, and I'm not a Canva master at all. But I've learned a little bit. You could have somebody that's a full time job just in charge of technology to promote programs and kids and so forth. So that's kind of been a big change. It's taken off the last few years.
Talk about, so you spent all those years at Fremont, you came to Ogden, and I knew Ogden back in well, because I'm so much older, but I can, well, both gentlemen who have passed on, rest in peace, Dave Nordquist and Phil Russell, both. But Ogden pretty much has a history of some great athletics there. So talk about stepping in from a Fremont, which was a new school when you basically started there, and then stepping into a place like Ogden that's just steeped in tradition.
Yeah, and Fremont was 6A and Ogden's 3A. And of course, on the west side of the freeway, you know, it's a little bit different lifestyle, living conditions, and so forth. It's we've got a lot of good things going on here. It's I knew, like you said, some of our programs were really elite. Our girls and boys soccer programs have just been out of this world, playing for championships and winning championships. And we had great foundations in place in some of our sports. I didn't realize, though, fully till I got here about how great of a foundation we really had in all of our sports. It wasn't long ago to where our football program had lost like 34 games in a row. And then Eric Thompson was hired to come in and change things around. And the last 2 years, we've had winning seasons and we've won a playoff game each of the last 3 years. And our numbers, we had 90 kids in our football program this year, which is, when I got here 4 years ago, there were 60. So a lot of good things going on that way. We've made it a point to hire great coaches who are have great character and lead with positivity. And we've made a point of that in our hiring. Of course, we talk X's and O's, but we really focus hard on character and culture. And we spend a lot of time as coaches together trying to develop our leadership skills and our culture. And I think that's really paid off a lot. Our biggest obstacle right now is our participation numbers in some of our sports are a little bit low. Some of our sports are doing really well participation wise, but others of them, not so much. And so we're working with the school district and the city to think outside the box and figure out how we can get our youth involved in our programs and capture them at a young age. And so when they get to high school, we can retain them and have the right talent level and the numbers for our programs.
Let me ask you a question that wasn't on the list that I sent you, because I know both Mitch Arquette and I know Ken Crawford real well, and I think it must be great for you working in a district that's got at least those two that have a background in athletics and have coached and have been around, because when I talk to some of the ADs, they don't have that. So talk for a minute about working with those guys and having the support behind you.
Yeah, those two are the best. Mitch was at Davis High as the head coach while I was the head coach
Right.
at Fremont. And then he came over my last year, he came over and was my O-line coach at Fremont while he was the district AD here. So I've known Mitch for years. He's a great asset, and Ken's the same way. Ken will do whatever he can for our facilities, to upgrade our facilities and allow us to be successful. So that foundation's been huge. And then our superintendent is Luke Rasmussen. I don't know if you know Luke, but he's the chairman of the board of trustees, I think, or something like that. And whatever the official title is. And he played at Fremont before I got there, and then he played at Weber State, played football, and then he coached at Fremont with us, and then went to Northridge. So he has a huge coaching background. And my principal is Shauna Haney,
right?
And she's coached like 30 years of high school volleyball, and she has a club team. And so we're very fortunate to have leadership in place that has a coaching background, and they understand and support coaches.
That's it's great you mentioned those names. It's a small world in the coaching community, because my son-in-law, I don't know if you've met him, my son-in-law is Eric Kerr at corner. And
Right.
so
Yes.
he allows me to hang out. And of course, I saw Mitch coaching at Syracuse just a couple of weeks ago in the playoff game. But I think my son-in-law and Luke coached for years and years, and I think that's where. And Eric has nothing but nice things to say about him. And of course, now he's the superintendent, and like you say, with the board of trustees. So I think it's great to have those people with that athletic background in those positions, because it makes such a such a big deal. So talk now for a minute about, you got the AD job, and somewhere along the line, someone talked to you and said, "Hey, you need to join the UIAAA. You need to get involved with the ADs." How exactly did that happen?
Well, that's Mitch again. The moment I got hired, first thing he said to me was, "Hey, you need to get involved in the UIAAA." And I'll be honest, I didn't know what it was.
Sure.
Um, when I was at Fremont, we one year our football team won the academic state championship.
Amity State Championship, right?
Yeah, and we got the plaque, and I was like, "What's the UIAAA? Like, what is this?" And so uh, my athletic director had to explain it to me. But yeah, Mitch said the first thing you want to do is join the UIAAA and the National Association, and you want to make sure you go to the conferences, and you want to get certified, nationally certified, and so he made the push for that, and our district's been really good about financially supporting that for us and making that happen.
Talk about certification now and talk about your journey with certification uh, with the NIAAA.
Yeah, so I'll be taking the test this year. Um, so I'm excited. I'm excited about that. Um, I've signed up for one of the classes in February. That's going to
Mm-hmm.
be taught down at the UHSAA. I don't remember which LTC class it is, but the number anyways. But those have been a blessing. Um, I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? And then you get into these
Right.
classes, and it's like, oh my gosh! And there's so many great ideas and so many. It's just a great way to improve um, ourselves and our craft. I mean, we ask our coaches and our athletes to do that, to learn, be students of the game, and be lifelong learners. And so this is a great opportunity for us. So I've really enjoyed those classes.
Let me ask you if you could debunk one common myth about being an athletic director to the public, what would that be?
Well, I people always say, you have to go to all the games and events. That's what they say, and I always tell them, no, I get to go to all the games and events. This is like heaven. The last 4 years have been heaven. I don't teach anything at all. I'm a full time athletic director, and so I get to go watch all of the sports events. I get to watch other people do what they're passionate about. It's not what I'm passionate about, but I have learned to really love going to things that I events that I don't play or sports I don't play. Whether it's soccer or marching band or whatever. I can't do that stuff. I wasn't that talented. So it's been fun to go watch that. So I don't have to. I get to. It's been a joy.
Excellent. What's your favorite part of your job, Ross?
Besides going to all those events, um, getting out of the office is always good. Building relationships with coaches and the student athletes. When you teach, it's sometimes you have a hard time figuring out what makes people tick and making those bonds. But as an AD, you deal with the student athletes all the time, and you know what they love because they're doing it, and so you can immediately talk to them about their sport and their event, and immediately make those relationships. So that's been my favorite part of it.
Excellent. Let's finish up with a couple of questions, Ross. The first being this, and I realize you've been in the job 4 years now, but if you had advice for a brand new athletic administrator and they had to follow Ross's advice in order to become a success, what would your two suggestions be?
Oh wow, there's gosh, a couple things came to mind. Narrowing it to two was a little bit hard. Um, first thing I would suggest would be to reach out to veteran ADs and ask questions. Build those bonds. You probably know them from the coaching world. Um, Athletic directors are willing to help other athletic directors all the time, and so I would say, sit down and meet with them and get their input and their advice, and then twist it to make it work for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the other part would be, I think, build relationships, do it right away, and do it every day, and put in the time. This is one of those jobs. There's no time clock. The community, the parents, the student athletes, the coaches, they know if you're putting in the time or not. And if you're putting in the time, they really appreciate it. And I think it eliminates a lot of problems with the athletic world. So, of course, throw in there, be organized. That kind of goes along with put in the time, be organized.
Those are some great suggestions. Thank you so much for sharing those. Let me finish with this question. Ross, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
Well, I came up with two that I get asked all the time
Okay,
from my friends
perfect.
and stuff, and they always say, "What do you do all day? Like during the school
Okay.
day, what do you do?" Because the events are usually at night, and gosh, I don't even know how to start answering that with anybody because there's so much we do as athletic directors that uh, is behind the scenes that nobody sees. A lot of organizational stuff, a lot of whether like right now this time of year we got winter sports starting up, and so everybody's rushing to get register my athlete done and coaching certifications done and so forth. And we've got a game tomorrow, boys basketball game tomorrow, so we're trying to get that all squared away and make sure everything's ready to go. But there's a lot of stuff, and um, you just bounce around all day long, putting out little fires and getting called to do this and that, and you're inside and outside and all over the place. There's oftentimes you get done at the end of the day and your to-do list, you didn't mark anything off on it, but you did a million things, right?
Yes,
So,
I understand.
so, and the second question I answered, I think already, and that what is the required time commitment for doing this job right? And like I said, there's just it's just whenever the job's done, that's when you go home. There's no time clock. Just get there early and stay as late as you need to stay.
I
So
understand exactly. That is so well said, and some great answers for our listeners out there. On that note, that wraps up this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Ross Arnold, the Director of Athletics at Ogden High School. Ross, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
thank you, Hutch. Appreciate you having me.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.